Hello everyone, this is Mark Flopsy Shepherd once again, and today I'm going to show you how to use the Lemmix editor. So you see me create a lot of levels and you're wondering how to do it yourself. Well, I'm going to show you. So first of all, you need to go to the right place to make sure you've downloaded the right versions. There's a couple of places you can go. If you go to the Lemmings forums first, you know, that could be one place you can go. If you go to the part of the website titled Lemmix, click on it. There'll be a post at the top saying Lemmix update. Now this is where you get the latest versions of Lemmix. So in this topic it details which versions each of the tools are on. I'm not going to show you how to use the player. My series is just going to focus on the editor, the Flexi, and the graphic set tool. And the graphic set tool is not going to be a very comprehensive guide because I don't really understand it fully myself, but I can show you what I understand. So the downloads are at the bottom here of this topic. If you go there, you'll be able to download it. So that's one place you can get them from. The other places, I've got another tab here. You can go to neolemmix.com, and this is the home page. And if you go to Lemmix, you can download Lemmix, and you can download Lemmix editor, and you can download the Flexi Toolkit, and where's the graphic set tool? Graphic set tool should be on here. Yeah, it's down here. There you go. Although it doesn't look like this website's very up to date. If you want the best place to get the up to date versions from, I'd recommend coming to the Lemmings forum topic, and in there it will be the up to date versions. I don't think I think the meter comes here second, and sometimes he doesn't even update the version numbers, so you can't be sure you're getting the most up to date version. But no worries. I'm sure he probably puts the link in and just forgets to update what the current version is sometimes, so don't be put off. Okay, so I've shown you how to where to get all the up-to-date versions from. You need to make sure you're using the Lemmix tools ideally, because you want the most up-to-date stuff. So you'll have a folder which is dedicated to Lemmix stuff, which is here on my desktop. This is just a folder representation of my desktop here, and I've cleaned it up a bit because there was loads of crap at the bottom of these folders, so cleaned it up to make it nice and easy. So I've got a folder for the Lemmix stuff. This will be where all the players will be. If you put the Lemmix players in a separate folder, you know, there's all the packs you can play. They may or may not. These may not be all compatible with the current version of Lemmix, so I wouldn't advise downloading everything. There's my Lemmix player. If I click on that, it's already linked on my taskbar anyway, so I don't need to come here to play it. I've got Lemmix version 1.3. That's for that's for all the older packs. Yeah, I should probably come back to that. If you go to the Lemmix page, Nemida's got the download for the older versions of Lemmix, because not all the packs are up to date to be able to use the newer stuff. There's some which will need version 1.43 and version 1.47. But if you try and use a pack that has the wrong version of Lemmix, it will tell you what pack you'll need. So you just need to come here and download that version. But anyway, I'll put that away now and come back to the folder again. So that's why I've got an older version of Lemmix. I haven't actually got a version 1.47 player at the moment. That's a version 1.48 player. Well, I shouldn't really say version 1.48 because that's where it went over to the new numbering system, the version 10.010.010, which I think is on 0.011 now. But yeah, some people prefer the old system and some people prefer the new system, but I'm not getting into that argument today. So I'm not going to go into detail on the player. I assume you already know about all this, but yeah, so editor. You need you do need a Lemmix player in the editor folder. Can't stress this enough, because I'll go into detail on that in a minute when I go into the editor. But basically there'll be an option in the Lemmix editor to play test your level, and for that it needs a Lemmix player to start. So if you don't have a Lemmix player in this folder, you're going to get into trouble. And what I should also advise is, if you start up Lemmix and you get Windows giving you an error message saying they've blocked out the file or something, and it needs to run anyway, I should advise double clicking this icon in the editor folder as well, because otherwise that will bring up an error message as well. Because sometimes Windows recognises this as two separate applications, and it needs to block each of them individually until you tell it not to. But I won't be able to reproduce this error message, unfortunately, because it might cut off my recording, and I don't think it will come up anyway. But anyway, this is how your editor folder should look. There might be less files in your version, because I've had lots of different versions of Lemmix, and some of them I don't know which ones are still needed. I'm sure someone could tell me which ones of these I need to get rid of. But you need a music folder. That's to do with the Lemmix player. But yeah, because I've been creating levels, I've got like loads and loads of music, because I've got lots of named tracks on my levels, but I'll go into detail on that later. Styles, you need this for all your graphic sets. All the graphic sets need to be in this folder. And I'm going to stress this as well, it must be called music and it must be called styles. You can't call it anything else. And everything else in here is pretty much not needed, because they're just stuff that I've put in for decoration purposes. You might get a replay folder actually, if you've chosen the editor to save replays for you. But I'll go into detail on that as well. Yeah, so the only three you should probably have is music, replay and styles. You don't think you get anything else. So there we go, that's what the editor folder should look like. So I'm going to go into the editor now, which is down here on the taskbar. You might find it useful to have a taskbar link if you're going to be using these religiously, you know, like every day and stuff, because you're going to embark on a big level pack project like I have. In which case, that's how many levels I've got. So if so, you might benefit from having a taskbar link if your version of Windows allows that. Although I think every version of Windows allows it. So you start up the Lemmix editor and you'll get this blank screen here. If you've got a version which has got lots of white boxes down here, I'd advise you need to upgrade your Lemmix editor, because they haven't been used for a good while now. But yeah, they were there, but now they're not. There used to be something for you to insert your little windows into, and they clip into it and everything. Okay, so if you right click in the black box here, you'll get insert terrain, insert object, insert steel, and set screen position. The bottom two you'll probably rarely use, because I never even use the insert steel option, and I'll show you why. You don't need it, but I'm sure that's something that's very advanced. So if you go into insert terrain, it might be beneficial as well if you select the graphic set first as well, which I will show you how to do. So the first thing you should probably do is go to new, and it'll ask you to select a graphic set. Now that's where your graphic set styles folder comes into play, because it will display everything that's in here, pretty much, if it's able to use it. So if we return to this, I don't know what the best one to use is. I'm going to use my new graphic set actually, because this is going to be public news in the next couple of days anyway. This graphic set hasn't been released yet. Now, if the graphic set supports this, it will have a custom background come up, like it has, look. Now, there is a way to change this. If you're not happy with it, I've always got a knack for having my phone going off during my videos. I do apologise about that. You have got a choice to change this background, but it's got to be a background image. Like, it's got to say image background. You can't just go and pick something like exit, for example, otherwise you'll get this. This is not a background image, but object. But yeah, the reason why this one has come up is because it's the first background object in the set. So I'm not going to change it, but I'm just going to show you how to change it in case it's the wrong one, for example. It's this option here in the level properties. And I'll show you how to bring the level properties up. It's just here. So, sorry, it does seem a bit complicated, but it does get better the more you use it. So, we've got our background now, we've got our level. So, if you want to insert terrain, this is just stuff that Lemmings can physically walk on. And, you know, there's no interactions or, you know, Lemmings dying on it, for example. This is just all the stuff that Lemmings can physically walk on. You know, it's nothing invisible. It's nothing Lemmings can walk through. So, let's put one in, for example. There we go. And you might want to put another piece in. So, I recommend that I just use the copy feature on the keyboard normally, which is Control-C, and then I press Control-V afterwards, and then you've got another piece that's on top of each other. Now I'm using the arrow keys on my keyboard to move it around now, but if you rather move it quicker, you can hold down the Control key and it will move it about 10 pixels at a time, which is more helpful than just doing that, because that's going to take a long time, isn't it? So yeah, let's put that into place. Now, if you've got a little pixel gap here, the Lemmings will fall through that. So you need to make sure pieces are locked together like that. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. So we want a trapdoor, don't we? So there's our trapdoor. Now, it'll bring up the trapdoor for that graphic set. And I'll show you how I did this. It's actually classed as an object. So if you go into objects, it's hard to see what's written on the right here, but there's not much I can do about it because that's just the size of the window. But yeah, most graphic sets should have the exit and the trapdoor right at the top of the objects list. And then every graphic set must have one-way arrows, and it must also have one-way down arrows. If you don't know what one-way down arrows are, don't worry. You probably haven't played Lemmings enough to know what they are. Then there's traps, obviously. Now, if they're fire traps, that means that the Lemming will disintegrate when they come into contact with them. But yeah, you'll learn more about these types of objects in the graphic set tool tutorial that I'm going to do. So if it says fire, then it's a class as a trap. If it says triggered trap, that means it's a trap that will go off once the Lemming's standing in a particular place. And I've got teleporters in this graphic set as well. Teleporter means that if the Lemming walks into it, it's going to teleport somewhere else, and it will go to where the receiver is. So that's the important difference between the two. I know these don't like fire, but it's easier to have them as fire because, you know, the Lemmings are going to disintegrate if they come into contact with those things. So don't be confused if you see fire and there's not actually a trap that's got fire on it. It's just the way the fire is just a broad principle of what will happen when the Lemmings come into contact with that object. So basically, as you can see, objects are going to be the graphic set objects, the graphic set items where the Lemmings have to have an interaction with them. For example, they come out the trapdoor, they go in the exit. They can't. Well, it could also define. in the way of one-way arrows, it will define what a lemming can and can't do with a wall. And objects are always traps as well. Basically things that lemmings will interact with. They either die, they move somewhere else, get told they can't do something. Yeah, and the like. And every graphic set has to have a pre-placed lemming, a pickup skill as well. So if you find a graphic set without these, you need to let us know on the forums. I can't remember what the exact definition of it is, but I know it has to have an entrance and exit, one-way arrows, pre-placed lemming, skill pickup, and I think that's it really. There's not actually any requirement to have anything else. You don't need to have locked exits. You don't need to have traps technically. You don't need to have any of that. So, there's our trapdoor. So now we need to find a place for the exit to go. I'm going to put this nice big piece here. Put a locket in the bottom left corner. And something I should probably also mention is, every time you start a new level, the size of the level will be exactly one screen. So this will all fit on one screen. And I'll show you why. I'll show you what will happen when I go to test the level now. But I always like to have a trapdoor and an exit placed. You only need a trapdoor placed to actually start the level. Because if you don't have a trapdoor placed, the level will just stop immediately. Because there's nothing physically for the lemmings to come out of. But anyway, if you go to Tools and press Play this level, this is where it will start the Neo Lemmix player and put it in test mode. Now, as you can see, there's no level name. The default number of lemmings is always 40, and it's always to be saved 20, and the default is release rate 50. So if you don't change any of those, that's what it will be. But they all get changed in the same part of this tutorial anyway. And the rating will always say test mode because it's not actually in a pack. If you set a time limit, then the time limit will be displayed, otherwise it will be infinite. And if you click, you'll always get a skill set of 10 of everything of the standard 8 lemming skills. Excuse me. And what you'll get as well is you'll get a randomly generated music track if you don't actually assign anything. But don't worry too much about setting music at this stage. Music should be the last thing you're worrying about in a level, in my opinion. So this is just a way to test your level out and be able to get things done. But you're probably asking me, how do you change these variables? How do you change the skills and everything? Well, I'll go on to that right now. So level properties. That's where you put the level name, right there. So I'll just put test level by Flopsy and author Flopsy. Music file. I'll put the name of the graphic set, Scrap Brain. I have actually got a track titled Scrap Brain as well. Now this is where it's important. I'm just going to show you a moment. When you... Sorry, my phone's going off again. I will put that on silent right now, what I remember. There, done. So, if we go into the Neo Lemmix editor folder, this is the only thing that you should concern with the editor. If you've got problems with the Neo Lemmix editor not doing something, it should only concern this folder that you've made for it. It shouldn't be out here in any of the other folders. So, if you go to the music folder, you'll notice, if I go down, I've got a track called Scrap Brain. Now, you only need to put the name of the file. You don't actually need to put the extension as well. So don't put whatever it is, you know, an MP3 file, a .ogg file. Don't put that in this field. It's important that you don't do that. If you just specify the name, the Lemmix editor will automatically search this music folder and find something called that without the extension, and it will play it if it supports it. Now, everything in this folder is supported by the Lemmix editor. So MP3 files are supported, .ogg files are supported, .mod files are supported, .it files are supported, but I should probably mention that .wav files, WAV files, are probably not, I don't think they're supported, and Windows Media Audio files, WMA, are not supported. So if you've got files in that format, you got to use a file converter to get them into another format. I use MP3s. It's recommended you don't use them, but I've used a lot of MP3 files without issue, to be honest. I'm not going to endorse them, obviously, but just you shouldn't take too seriously the fact that they're not recommended to be used, but they do work pretty well. I think the reason they're probably not recommended is because the file size can be quite big, as you see there, 5.82 for a 6-minute track. So anyway, enough about the music. So there we go, we've got Sprat Rat Brain. We'll change the release rate to 99, make it look like a hard for Flopsy level A. Make it 50 Lemmings and 50 to be saved. And if you want to add a time limit, you've got to tick this box. Now that's the number of minutes and that's the number of seconds. You can actually specify an exact precise time limit for these levels you make. So I'll just put, for example, 4 minutes 20 seconds. Don't ask why I've picked that number. It's just gone off the top of my head. Okay. Now if you want to get really, really technical, this is where you change the size of the level. Now if you put, I'll just put back what was there a moment. It's 320 by 360. That's the default. That is the size of the screen when you start the level. Now if you put it to example 640, that would be 2 screen sizes because that's double 320. Now the first number is how wide the level is going to be. Now if you want to go into vertical scrolling levels, for example you want a double sized vertical level, there you go, you've got it. But I'm not going to do that this time. Vertical levels are just a whole new can of worms in my opinion. So there we go, and I'll put this on a moment. If you go to view, screen start, F3, well, I don't use the F function keys, to be honest. I'm probably the most backwards person you ever meet on this forum. But if you put screen start on, that box that comes up, that's where the screen will start. But if you want to change the position of it, you need to put the coordinates in. Now you don't need to worry with this one because it's going to be taking up the full vertical plane of the level anyway. But I should probably bring the vertical plane back in. Just there's a variable. So for example, if I put it to 50, 0, you see that it moved. That's where the level will start when you start the level. You can actually specify an exact position for where the level starts. But obviously they can still scroll around. It's very negligible, but you obviously don't want it like over here, for example, 320, 0, because there's nothing there. You're just going to confuse people. You want it to be where the action is, ideally. You want it where the trapdoor is, or in the case or if you've got like an exit and like loads of trapdoors, put it where the exit is, and everyone can find the trapdoors. One of the biggest complaints when making levels is if people don't notice that there's a trapdoor on the other side of the level or something. If there's an obvious trapdoor and a not so obvious trapdoor, put it where the not so obvious trapdoor is. That's just a recommendation. Don't take my advice to heart. So put that back to 160. Okay, so that's the level properties tab covered pretty much. I'd always recommend having auto steal on as well. I don't really know what these mean, but I think one-way inversion is something you don't want to do, because it means the one-way arrows will be behaving the wrong way. Oh, excuse me. So, if we go to the inspector window, this is pretty important as well. I should probably have some tiles overlapping as an example. Get a different tile just to make it so more obvious. Alright, so as you can see, this tile, if you put new tiles down, they will always go in front of the other ones, unless you've got an option required to disable it, but I think, let's just view the options a moment, just so you know where they are. Settings, there we go. Yeah, there's no option for it. So anyway, when you put a new piece down, it'll always put it on top of the existing pieces. But if you don't want that to happen, for example, you want this piece to be behind the piece you just placed, you just bring up the inspector window here, which is this window right here, and then you tick the no overwrite thing while I've got the piece selected. You can select any piece and it'll bring it up in the inspector window, so just make sure you've got it selected and it's displayed there. If it's an object, it'll appear down here. If it's a terrain piece, it'll appear up here. For example, we already know that an exit is an object, and this is a terrain piece. So, if I finally tick the no overwrite thing, like I said I was going to do a minute ago, you'll notice that it goes behind the piece. You might have to click on it again to be able to move it around as well, so don't worry if the arrows aren't responding. But if you untick it, it'll come back to the front again. That's just how you rearrange pieces. Now if you press invert, it will flip the piece upside down for you. Or if you press flip, it will invert it in the horizontal plane, so it will go from left to right. Or if you press rotate, you can flip it 90 degrees. Now if you want it, you need to do a combination of these things if you want to flip it other ways, because you can only flip it 90 degrees and that's it. But if you flip it after that, it will mirror image it again, for example. So if you've got combinations of this, for example, so any combination of these three boxes will probably get you the required result for which way you want to turn the piece, or which plane you want to flip it in. Now something else that is probably important is this erase one up here. Now if you select a piece and turn it into an erase piece, it becomes invisible. But the important thing about this is if you put it on top of other pieces, you can technically change the shape of them. Now this is how, you know, the advanced level creators make these very weird shaped levels. So if you get a very jagged piece, I don't think I've got any jagged pieces in this graphic set. I might have one. I've got one. I think I've got a spiky ball down here. Yes, I do. So if I turn that into an erase piece and then put it over the top of something else, you get a nice little star shape cut out of this piece then. Looks pretty nice actually, so I might keep that. So, what happens if you select a trapdoor? Right, well, you don't need to worry about this only on terrain stuff, because that's just stupid, because look, it'll make it appear when it's only over a piece of terrain, look, and it'll disappear if you go off a piece of terrain. But who wants to do that? I've never found a use for that personally, but I know there's a level in original Lemmings. If you go and look at the Mayhem level Poles Apart, the creators actually put water on the poles on that. That was used using only on terrain option. Now objects are always set to no overwrite, which means if anything's put over the top of it, it will get covered up by it. But that's good, because you don't really want the trapdoors to be sticking out over the top of things, because you actually want the terrain to be put all visible at all times. So objects should be set to no overwrite for that reason, I think. But what else? You've got the option to rotate a trapdoor. or inverted trapdoor, which I've never used personally. But if you want to do that, just be wary that the lemmings will fall out to the bottom of the level. So, for example, if you rotate it, the lemming will come out about here and just fall to the floor. So that's why I don't see any use for it. It's just something that's really fancy. So if you flip the graphic, the trapdoor will just flip the other way. There's an important thing. If you want a lemming to come out the trapdoor and go to the left instead of the right, that is when you should select this, face left, because then the lemmings will all come out to the left. You might notice that some people have got trapdoors where lemmings come out both ways, and I'll tell you how that's done. You just have two trapdoors over the top of each other, like so. So make sure they're in the same place, and then you make sure one is set to face left. And then look what will happen when you start the level.
Let's go.
There you go. So I'll get rid of that trapdoor. I've just got rid of that trapdoor to let you know. And these are things you probably don't want to do. You don't want fake or invisible objects anymore, because that just annoys people to no end. If you've got an invisible trapdoor, basically you can see it's still there, but if you start the level, it's not there.
Let's go.
You won't even see it open, you'll just see the lemmings come out of nothing. So that's what invisible is. Fake just means nothing will happen. It'll be classed as a terrain object. Well, it'll be classed as a terrain object, but it won't even be classed as a terrain object, so you can't physically walk on the trapdoor. So fake just means it'll be an object that does nothing. So it'll just be something that looks like a trapdoor, but it does nothing. I think if you select fake, I think it still opens.
Let's go.
No, it doesn't open. Okay, I've learnt something new there. Okay. So if you've got multiple trapdoors and you want to change the order that they spawn in, for example, I'll put one down here, you'll notice that one says index 0 and one says index 2. Now the index numbers are just if you give objects out, they'll all be given a number in the order that you assigned them. For example, I put this trapdoor down first, so it's index 0. This exit is at index 1, and this trapdoor is index 2. But if you want to change the order of the trapdoors, you just need to make sure their index numbers are changed. So if I make that 0, then that trapdoor becomes index 1 and that exit becomes index 2. So basically that's become 0 now, that trapdoor, and it's pushed that one up to 1 and it's pushed that one up to 2. It's pushed that exit up to 2. So as you can see now, if I start the level, we'll get the lemmings coming out of this trapdoor first. See? It was hard to see because of the 99 release rate, but if I do it frame by frame, you'll see that, yeah, look, it spawned out of that trapdoor first, then they came out of that one. So that's how you change the order of the trapdoors. So what else do I need to go through? Okay, this trapdoor now. Now, importantly, when you get rid of something with a lower index number, it pushes the rest of them down the queue again. So that's gone back down from 1 to 0 now, that has. If you have terrain objects, they also have index numbers, but they are completely independent of the objects. So terrain objects have a different list of index numbers. So anyway, something also that I need to point out on this index window is, obviously that's greyed out because the fact that it's not actually a steel object. I'll show you what happens if you actually assign a steel object. And you'll know it's a steel object because it'll have info steel, which means that is a terrain object that cannot be penetrated in any way, shape or form. No, it still doesn't come up even when you got a steel object, so it doesn't really matter. I'll just leave that steel object there anyway. And it doesn't even come up when you select a trapdoor, so I don't know what makes that become non-greyed out, whatever it is. So anyway, the right hand column, if you select an object, well, not an object, a piece of terrain, even if it's an object, it still comes up with stats and everything. It tells you the left, that means the left hand side of this box. As you can see, when I move it around, it changes. So they're just the coordinates of where it's based on those lines. That line is in the 6th pixel, that top line there, because it's 6. If I put it up right up to the top, look, it will say 0, 0. So that's just telling you where that box is in relation to the level axis, which is 0, 0 will be in the top left corner here. And that is the height of the box in pixels, and that is the width of the box in pixels. And I've already explained what the index number does. Now, something interesting, when I've got the trapdoor selected, you'll get some specific functions for that. Now, these are what will happen this is what happens to the lemmings when they come out the trapdoor. If you select climber, for example, they'll all come out with the climber skill already assigned to them. So they'll be climbers forever. They'll basically be climbers for the rest of the level. Every lemming that comes out of that trapdoor. I should probably point out as well, if you do something like that, it's normally common courtesy to put a pickup skill around where the trapdoor spawns to tell the player that every lemming that comes out of that trapdoor is that skill. You can pick up that skill, obviously, but they're just normally placed there to tell people that those lemmings are climbers. But obviously, if every lemming in the level is climbers anyway, you're not going to need the pickup skill, and you wouldn't be able to use it anyway. So yeah, let's get rid of that, because I'm just doing that to prove a point. So anyway, and also, it has a note down here for blockers. You can't actually have blockers come out of the trapdoors. It only works for pre-placed lemmings. So if we have a pre-placed lemming, which we can have if we go to put a pre-placed lemming down in the objects, pre-placed lemmings are good for testing particular areas of the level. It saves you having to get them across from the trapdoor. You can just put a lemming here and, like, you know, I want to test this specific part of the level and I don't want to go through the hassle of building across all the time. So that's what pre-placed lemmings are for. But if you select a pre-placed lemming, you can also have them placed on the level when the level starts, obviously, because that's probably the main use for them. But I like to use them as for a test point of view type of thing when I don't use them anyway. And you can have this lemming down as a swimmer, a floater, a glider. You can have as many of these selected as possible. You can even have all 6 of these selected. Maybe even the zombie state. Now, for those not familiar with zombie lemmings are like evil lemmings. They're just, you know, they'll be there, but they can infect other lemmings. And zombie lemmings can't be saved. They can't have tasks assigned to them. So if you want them to start as a zombie, just tick that. But yeah, that's how you do that sort of thing. Now, depending on what type of object it is, you might have different things come up here, but that is probably one of the main things that will come up. If you select an exit, you'll get nothing new there. Something I haven't spoken about is this locked thing here. If you lock it, you're not able to move it around while that is ticked. So that's pretty handy if you're really clicky around with your mouse and you accidentally move things accidentally, and you don't. And if you want things to not move around, basically for any reason whatsoever, just click the locked and it will stay put no matter what. Alright, so I've explained the expector window. I'll just check if there's any more objects that need explaining. I don't think there is, actually. Excuse me, I'm talking too much. There's another cat was in here. So I've explained the level properties of the window. I'll just go into the level to show you what the changes to the level property video did anyway. Level properties tab did. As you can see, it's level 1. It's always going to be level 1. It's not going to change unless that's not going to change. So you can't change the level number, not while you're in test mode. And we've got the 50 lemmings. We've got the 50 to be saved. We've got the 99 release rate. 4 minutes 20. You can't change the rating because it's not in an NXP. So don't worry about rating or level numbers. That's not going to be covered in this because we're not on the Flexi Toolkit. And the author is Flopsy, which is me. So back to this again. Right, so you want to know how to change the skill set. So you go to View and press Level Skill Set. Now, as we've seen, it is 10 of every skill. And then it'll have the 8 skills selected. Now, you don't have to have 8 skills on the level. You can get rid of some of them, for example. I've just got rid of floaters and blockers. Look what happens. They'll get removed from the skill set. So, if they're not ticked, then the number is irrelevant. So, don't worry about the numbers if they're greyed out. So, if we wanted platformers and swimmers, for example, this is just playing around genuinely, we just tick them and you'll get 10 of them. But what if you don't want 10 of them? Then you just change the number. Now this can go anywhere from 1 to 99. You can even put 0 in and you'll just get a greyed out skill. A whited out skill, sorry. Oh, I hadn't even got that ticked, so my bad. Oh, I do have it ticked. What's going on there then? And I think if you untick... So what's going on? Why is the climber not coming up? Oh, it is now. If you untick that thing next to the number, you get an infinite amount of skills, look. Which means no matter how many times you use it, it's always going to be there. So yeah. Sorry, wrong window there. So that box, if it's not ticked, it will be infinite. So I think that covers skill set. I don't really understand the window ordering thing. It's been a bit buggy with me recently, so I'm not going to go bother explaining that. You probably won't even need to use it anyway. So if you've got a problem with window ordering, I think window ordering just comes down to index, and that's stuff I was explaining with index numbers. Where is it? Inspector window. So if I select an object, look, it's index number 4. Like I said with trapdoors, make sure the lowest index number is the one you want to spawn first, and you can swap them around if you're not if they're not. You can change the numbers in the index window. Don't worry about doing that. So these tick objects here are terrain rendering, and if you untick it, all the terrain objects will disappear and only show the objects. Now this can be handy to tell you what objects are on the level. So if you can do the same with objects, you get rid of all the objects. They'll still be there when you play the level. They're just there for the purpose of displaying in the editor. So steel rendering, you won't see that because don't worry too much about steel rendering. Background rendering, that's if you want to get rid of the background. If you find it too distracting, for example. And I showed you how to turn on the screen start. Now trigger areas, you're going to have something, well the entrance and exit have trigger areas, but they're really small to see. So for example, I'm going to put a fire in here to make it look like it's coming out of this pipe here. And because it's an object, we have to turn no overwrite off to make sure it overwrites the the terrain. And it won't affect it in any way, it's just the way it displays. But if you had the fire going behind the terrain, it will probably annoy people because they don't know it's there. But although it's pretty obvious it's there because it's oozing out the ground. So if we select to play the level, which we don't want to do, what am I doing? Trigger areas. Now the pink areas are, if the lemming walks into this area, it will get burned. Now the important thing I found with trigger areas is, I'll show you. I probably need a flat surface to demonstrate this a bit better. Something I've learnt the hard way with trigger areas is you can't just put it like so that the pink area is, you know, just intersecting, just touching the ground there. It's got to be in the ground, as in the pink area is going to be 1 pixel into the ground. And I'll show you why. Watch the pre-placed lemming when I start the level.
Let's go.
It'll walk straight through it, look. But if I put it below the ground by 1 pixel, the lemming needs to be physically standing on the top of pink, for example, for it to work. Just think of that golden rule. The lemming's going to be standing on the pink. It can't be standing. It can't have his feet touching the bottom of the pink area. And look what happens. He gets burned. Look. So when placing objects, always remember, like that X is showing there, the pink area's got to be going into the ground. Can't be touching. It can't be, you know, just touching, skimming the ground or touching it like that. Look. Oh yeah, I've locked that exit. My bad. So look, you can see anyway because the exit will be off the ground, but I'll turn the trigger areas off so you can see it a bit better. But you can see that little gap there. So yeah, the exits are basically tuned so that as long as they're touching, as long as the exit itself is touching the ground, the trigger area will be fine. So don't worry too much about that with exits. I'm just telling you with trap placements, because trap placements are the way you tend to get caught out. Right, okay. I've done validate level. You don't normally get any errors in this. It just basically tells you if the editor has found any problems in the level. It will normally tell you if an object's completely out of bounds, for example. Like, for example, if I put this pre-placed limit all the way off the screen, it's going to come up in the validate look. Object 2 is completely positioned outside the play area. So fix issue. And it doesn't do anything. Lovely Namido. Help. That just displays the version number. And all this just displays the version number and the credits and everything. That can be handy if you're unsure about what version of the editor you're using. This is the latest version of the editor, version 10.010.010 at the time of recording, of course. So, as you can see, if you right click, you get insert object, insert terrain, insert steel, set screen position. I think if you press set screen position, for example, if you're over here, it will show you, it will set it to the area you've got in the window. For some reason it seems to be going off to the left there, so I don't really understand that. If I press set screen position again, it's going to go back to the beginning again. So that's an easy way to get the screen position set to the part of the level you're working on. But for accuracy, I'd recommend going by the coordinate system, because at least you can see it move if you've got it ticked, look, like I showed there. So if you ever want to turn trigger areas off, you just need to untick it again. If you want to turn the screen start off, you turn that off again. So there's an undo function, there's a redo function, they're handy, they were added in recent versions of Lemmix. There's copy and paste. Don't really understand what paste special means, so I never need to use it. Now an important thing is, what if you realise you want to add something to the left hand side of this level and you want to shift the whole level across? There is an easy way to do this. If you go to this little edit function called shift level and you press horizontal distance, put horizontal distance 50, this will shift everything in the level across 50 pixels. If you want to shift things to the left, you put minus 50, minus being a hyphen. So look what happens. Everything gets shifted across 50 pixels to the left. To rectify that, I just need to put 50 again. If you want to import another level, For example, if you want to go and get another level and bring it into a new file, all you need to do is press import layout and click the level file in question. Now you're probably wondering how to save all this now, all this progress that you've done. But I'm going to look at the settings first before we do that. Clear section with single mouse click in air. Yeah, sometimes you need to click twice sometimes. I think you pretty much need to click twice all the time to get the selection cleared. You know, when you got when you select an object and got it viewing in the inspector window, you need to click twice to get off of it, but there's an option to turn it to a single click. Dare ask a piece type when adding piece. Never use that, so I don't understand that one. Set one-way capable on terrain by default. Yeah, I didn't go into detail on that. I missed something in the inspector window there. I do apologise. I've got a one-way wall here, but we don't want it to overlap into this next piece across, for example. We only want it on this right-hand piece. What do we do to solve that? So that option just means that one way is set capable on all terrain objects. So it means that if you put a one-way wall over the top of it, it will display on all terrain pieces without question. But if you untick the one-way option, the one-way wall will not appear at all on this terrain piece now. So that is technically not a one-way wall anymore, this terrain piece, but that is, provided you have it set all the way across, of course. Oops. Sorry. So there you go. Something I should probably also note is, if you have the control key held down, you can do a little drag box, and that will select everything in the area for you that you've just done. And look, you can copy and paste multiple things. How useful is that? So there we go. That covers the one-way thing. Something which I forgot to do. My apologies. Settings reminded me there. That's what set no overwrite on objects. Oh yeah, that was the object. That was the option I went with early. That was the option I went over earlier. Set no overwrite on objects by default. That just basically means that they will always go behind terrain objects if they overlap with them. But you can turn that off, obviously, as you've seen. You just need to click on it, go to inspector window, turn off no overwrite. In which case it will start appearing over the top of terrain objects then. So I think that's about it for settings. What's the bottom one? Alternate pace mode. Never used it, so I couldn't possibly comment on it. Not really used the zoom position as well, so just have the top object selected by default if you want to go by what I'm doing. And I think that's it. A line. I don't really understand that bit. I've never used it personally, so I won't get too hung up on that. I think no, it's not done anything. Okay, I don't really understand what that does then. I was hoping it was going to go, if you press selection and then put to back, it would put the fire behind that. Okay, so we know what new does because that's just how we start our new level. Open as if we want to open something we've already saved. So save as test level. And you only get one option. Save as an image file. I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, you might need to make sure Lemmix level file is selected if you want to save it as a level file. There'll be .lvl.level. But I think if you save it as an image file, it will save the level as a picture in case you want to post it on the forums to show everybody else. Never knew you could do that, so that's pretty helpful. Then you press save. Then we go out of it, open it again. Just go and find test level. Oops. Here it is. There we go. And if you want to just save without pressing save as, you know, constantly type in the file name and everything, there's just a save function. Now, I recommend saving very regularly, because you never know when a computer's going to go wrong, so just save your work regularly. Can't stress that enough. So, I think that about concludes what I wanted to cover in this video. Next video, I'm going to be showing what happens when you've got a load of levels and you want to put them together into an actual playable, you know, level pack. So, this has been Flopsy, and thank you very much for watching.